In this episode, we're going to be talking about some of the burnout collapse symptoms that I was having so that you can start recognizing when you are having certain burnout symptoms, that it's a sign that your body's saying, slow down, get me checked out, or here's maybe some things that are going on. Now, in my journey, over probably a decade of symptoms, I kept getting misdiagnosed by modern medicine, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in this episode. The burnout collapse, because it was over a decade, is there's certain categories of symptoms that I'm going to separate out so that you can really hone in on your journey and where you're at, just based off of mine, to focus an action plan because it covers a lot. So this episode's going to be focused on the physical collapse symptoms. Future episodes, we're going to be talking about the cognitive failure, we're going to be talking about the relationship dysfunction, and then, of course, the emotional factors that go with all of that. So, about 10 years ago, I was about 28. I took a high level job. It was within the organization I was already working, and it was already hustle type of culture. We had 24/7 operation, 3 plants, but I was at more of a mid-level range position and just doing a lot of initiatives, a lot of programs. So when my boss moved on to a different position, naturally I was next in line. The interesting thing, though, that I found out is I wasn't really set up for success. I didn't have anyone else that was transitioning with me, so I was doing this very much alone. I was a female in a male dominant industry, manufacturing, and so everyone that sat around the senior management table with me was 50 years and older, male, and they have been with the company quite some time. So I was not only the youngest person by age, I was at a disadvantage because of my gender and going into mom mode, which none of them had to deal with. They had people at home to take care of their kids, or their kids were already moved out of the house. And then I also didn't have any tools to help me with leadership. I kind of had to figure it out on my own. And if you've been watching my videos, you can already see that I adapt and change well. But also, that is a more steep journey because you are climbing a summit at any point in time, figuring out tools as you go. And when you go on those type of journeys, you kind of need the right tools for the job. So it was a main struggle. I was 28, took this job. I also was having my first child. And my first child is our most challenging. He has something similar to sensory processing disorder, which we didn't know till later, which I'll talk about in future vlogs. But he didn't sleep for like his first 3 years. He was happy and then he was sad, and you couldn't really link up variables of what's wrong with him. And he also had cousins on my side and his dad's side that were all born in the same year. So a lot of that comparison cough and things we talk about in the newsletter on my website. So all those babies were sleeping and developing at the pace that they should. You feed them, they're happy. You change them, they're happy. And for us, it wasn't that. And so it seemed like you were doing something wrong as first time parents. So there's all the stress of that. Plus, I took on this big position, and it was a lot. So that's probably when I started to really see symptoms. I probably had symptoms already in a very mild nature, but now they were pretty apparent now that I reflect back on it. So around age 28, I started getting chronic headaches. So chronic headaches is a sign of the gut is stress. The gut, something is off. You can get headaches a lot when you're sick, or when you have the flu, when you're taking very high dose meds because your gut bacteria is off. Again, I didn't know that, so I just had chronic headaches. I thought, oh, well, it's because I'm not sleeping because I have a newborn, and, I'm not sleeping because I'm all up all night thinking about work. So that's where it started. But then, as a year or two went on, those headaches turned to migraines. And some of you out there who have had migraines know the effect of that, but people who don't have migraines, it is like, it feels like your head is going to explode, but also you can't see and you can't think. And then, like, it sends nerve signals all the way down your body of just sheer pain, because your nervous system can't really moderate what's going on with the pain. I had also vision loss with my migraines, so it was like a Looney Tunes aura shift where it was like a black hole until finally I couldn't see. So I would have my little baby in the back. I would have to pull over, and in about 10 minutes, I could get my sight back. huge migraine, and I would go home. But you still had to hustle. You still had to take care of a baby. You still had to go to work. And doing that with a migraine was just, it was horrible day after day. So eventually it got bad enough where I spent the money to go see a neurologist, which is a specialist. So we're not talking about a couple $100s. We're talking about a couple $1,000 appointment and after insurance. And basically, they put me through the tests. They put me through some stroke tests because I've had these migraines so long, and with the visual impairment and some of the other symptoms I was having, they wanted to test me for stroke. I was also on birth control, which is a natural thing in our society, and I'll talk about in the recovery how that comes into play. But being on birth control with some of the stroke tendencies and variables of migraines is it's not a good mix. So after that appointment, basically, I left with a large bill, of course, a prescription, and he told me that I'm in mom mode, that I'm getting older. And if you've been dismissed as a patient that is just in severe pain, it's the most discouraging thing ever. So that was my first interaction with doctors, is I went straight from a doctor to a specialist because the migraines were so severe, and I was kind of dismissed, given prescription, move on. Now this prescription I could only take twice a month because it was such a high dose, and if I took it more than that, I would have side effects, which could include like potential heart attack. So I got migraines almost weekly, and so it didn't solve the problem. All right, let's move forward a little bit from headaches to migraines, and now other symptoms started to show up. Again, when you're in the hustle, when you're busy with taking care of kids, especially a needy baby, and then you're also like consumed with work, you just kind of keep going and you dismiss these symptoms. But it was truly my body screaming for help at this point. So I have headaches almost on the daily. I'm getting migraines weekly. And then other things start to shift. I start to lose chunks of my hair, and that really got severe towards the collapse in 2021. But I would just like comb my hair, and a lot of hair clumps would come out. I actually went to go see my OBGYN, which is a women's doctor, and she said, well, you just had a baby. A lot of your hair will fall out after that because you gained a lot of hair during your pregnancy. Again, chalking it up to mom mode, but you know when something's excessive. You know how much hair usually falls out, and it was falling out in clumps. We're not talking like, oh, like there's a lot of hair in my brush. We're talking about me going like this and just having a giant clump of hair in my hand. And it, when that starts happening, you get slightly panicky. But again, you keep moving forward. So let's fast forward. I have my second kid at age 30. And more symptoms start to show up. So I have headaches, I have migraines, my hair is falling out in clumps, and now I'm starting to get like adult acne, which I had acne as a teenager, but kind of went away, and now it's coming back. And you kind of see it, some dots here. I have a little bit of makeup on right now. I still get them in weird places, like my back, my neck, which I never got acne there before. And those little acne spots started to turn into like sores, open sores. They would start to come on my arms. I would get eczema on my scalp, just weird skin issues. I went to a dermatologist. Again, lots of money because it's more of a specialist, and they sent me away with some ointments for psoriasis. So I'm supposed to use this ointment to clean up my eczema, the psoriasis spots on my arms, and then I can apply it to some of my acne that was just like really painful to the touch. Again, dismissed with a prescription. Now, keep going. We're a couple years into this, and digestively, this is kind of where it all started, but digestively, it started to get really bad. So I felt like I couldn't eat certain foods without getting a stomach ache. That was one sign. But again, sometimes you go to parties and football gatherings and you just eat too much crap. Maybe you drink too much alcohol, things like that. So you just chalk it up. Again, it seemed like it was more than that, because that gut ache or that stomach ache would last for days after. And so suddenly I was like, something's not right. So I go back to the doctor, and I will tell you, working in human resources, knowing the expense of that to benefit design plans, your insurance plans, knowing the expense to the consumer, where I'm already spending thousands of dollars trying to figure this out, I don't go to the doctor lightly. It will be the last thing that I do. So I go to the doctor, they're like, oh, you have indigestion. It's because you're having so many so many babies mom mode again. You're getting older. Digestive issues and indigestion will start because you're getting older. And I'm in my early 30s at this point. I thought that was weird because people around me, my age, are not having these issues. They're having aches and pains and other things for getting old, but they don't have these issues where it hurts to eat. So I keep going. Years go by. And here's where the collapse begins. So I'm having headaches, migraines, hair falling out. I'm having skin condition issues. Towards 2021, my physical collapse, I basically couldn't eat a lot of foods without it just hurting, like a stomach ache, like I'm going to have the flu in for a while. So I go see a holistic doctor, and this is my first experience with a holistic doctor myself. And she suggests an LCAT test, and this is like an allergy test that you can take based on some gut information of foods that you might be sensitive to. And then they put you on a plan to start building up to a tolerance to these foods. So I was like, okay, let's do that. When your digestive system starts slowing down, when your digestive system starts shutting down, and then you eliminate the minimal amount of nutrients that you're actually giving it, it basically put me into a starvation mode. So my body was hardly digesting food. I actually didn't have any stomach acid. That was why I was having stomach aches. And now I just took away the little bit of nutrients that I thought I could have because of this LCAT test. Now, I think that test is very valuable if you want to improve your health, if you want to feel just like a little bit better. But I had some severe issues, so that should have been a signal to this doctor that there might be some other stuff interconnected. It might not just be an allergy. So basically, cutting out all these foods put me into a starvation mode, and down went my digestive system. After that point, I couldn't eat without throwing up. There's certain foods in which I had to run to the bathroom. So basically, for a couple months, I would eat and make sure that I always knew where a bathroom was. So I go back to the doctor, and they're like, oh, you might have Crohn's disease. You should get tested for Crohn's disease. You might have celiac, which is the gluten allergy, and maybe we should test you for that. And all these things just kept piling up, and it just didn't make sense to me. Like, my head hurts, my skin has sores all over, my hair's falling out. All these things just don't make sense. So I didn't go to the doctor until February of 2021. So I'm age 35 now. So for about 7 years, I had these symptoms just building up, getting worse and getting worse and getting worse. And this doctor would diagnose this, and this doctor would diagnose this. And each time I left with a new prescription, and then I would have side effects from the prescription. So all these things are building up, and nothing is solving the problem. Everything's getting worse. So in February of 2021, I'm age 35, I go to my OBGYN because now a new symptom is I'm having 3-week-long periods and becoming anemic. Because if that happens for 3 weeks long, you're going to become anemic. And that was a really awful time. They put me on a very strong birth control. It was very expensive. They tested me for a bunch of procedures without any pain meds, which I can take a lot of pain, obviously. But some of these procedures should have had pain medication. It was more expensive than the neurologist by the time we got done with all the tests and the procedures and the prescription. And the next day I woke up and I felt the worst I ever did. I didn't want to take care of my 3 kids. I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to look at my phone. Like, it didn't matter to me anything. It didn't matter to do anything. And I never experienced depression before, but that was a scary thought, that you don't want to take care of your kids, your baby's crying, and you just don't care. So I called the doctor right away, and I was like, this is not me. I need this prescription changed. And so they immediately got me in. We got me off the prescription. Those symptoms went away of depression. Very scary place to be, and I'll talk about that more when we get to the emotional episode. So February 2021, I am 103 pounds because I can no longer just digest food. I have bald spots all over my head. I have sores down my neck that I'm wearing turtlenecks or cute little scarves to cover it up. I'm having 3-week-long periods, and then my migraines and headaches are still there. Not in great shape. So in March of 2021, I start up with a holistic doctor that someone recommended to me that said, I think there's something wrong with your gut. And I was like, obviously I'm not digesting food. And they recommended him because he specializes in women. So I'm obviously having some hormonal issues too. I hook up with him. We go an hour long of talking through every little step of this journey, which the modern medicine probably gave me 5 minutes in these appointment rooms and a prescription right after. And this person, an hour long, just listening and getting to the root causes, which I loved. He didn't want to just talk about the symptoms. He wanted to talk when the symptoms were happening, what happened before, what were you eating, what week of your cycle were you on, those type of things that he's trying to get to the root cause. And he said, these are all interconnected, Kelly. And I was like, what do you mean? I mean, that sounds probably the most legit thing that I've heard out of all these years of seeing specialists. But what do you mean? He said, Kelly, you're in burnout. Your body's in survivorship mode. Your organs are literally shutting down to survive. And that validation made so much more sense than all those other appointments and thousands of dollars spent on procedures and prescriptions. And I said, well, what do I do? Burnout I saw as, I don't burn out. I've been going like this for a long time. He says, Kelly, you're going to have a heart attack. The next thing that your body will do is have a heart attack because your digestive system has basically collapsed. Your adrenal gland that drives all your hormones, your sleep, your female cycle is completely dysfunctioning. Your liver is no longer processing toxins, and that's why you have skin rashes all over. And hair loss is because all those toxins are being pushed out away from your core organs to your skin. And so the next step naturally is there's so much stress on your organs that your heart will give out. That was shocking. That was shocking to me because these prescriptions were supposed to fix me. And coming from HR, we have insurance plans so that people can get the correct medical care. And the person that cost me like $500 gave me the answer in one 1 hour session. Of course, we had multiple sessions after that for my recovery that I'll talk about in future vlog episodes. But I couldn't believe that not one of these other physicians and specialists could piece all these parts together and see that my body is in survivorship mode, so stressed out that it was shutting down. And when we started a recovery plan, it literally took me 7 months with prescriptive herbals he had me on, lifestyle changes and diet changes, and I was up and functioning. Now, the kicker that I want to end this episode with, and we'll go through future episodes of the little intricacies that cause the emotional, cognitive, and relationship from all that physical collapse. The one thing I want to leave you at is, yes, I'm recovered to functionality, but not full functionality. My gut still cannot process certain foods like gluten and high sugars. It's very difficult if I drink alcohol. My liver doesn't process it very good. I'll break out with rashes. I'll have some insomnia come up over the next couple days. I have to be very careful about detoxing, so I do certain things to detox I'll talk about in future episodes to make sure that I'm supporting my liver. I have a pretty clear regimen of teas and other herbals that I still take today to make sure that I'm supporting my body. And then, of course, I amp that up when I'm in stressful situations because my body will naturally over provide hormones and chemicals because my body was in a stress state for a very long time. So I'm not alone in this. I have met people in my program that have had heart attacks from chronic stress. And I'll never forget the man in one of my programs. He was in hospitality and he was in his 50s, but he said at age 42 he had a heart attack while on shift. And then he had to recover and he came right back to work and he still works there, but he has core hours and he honors it and he takes really good care of his body. But seeing people who have had heart attacks from chronic stress, and I was almost 2 months away in my 30s from that point, is a really scary thing to think that we aren't talking about this more. So I plan to go through the emotional, cognitive, and relationship side of the collapse in future episodes. So we keep this short. It's already a long episode, but I couldn't believe that my first sign was chronic headaches. I could have prevented this, and that's the whole point of this vlog. Is there were signs there the whole time, but I had to hit rock bottom before I could see them. And so it's a reminder when your energy is draining that your energy is power, and when you can stay intentional and follow the energy, I want you to come back here for more tools to fuel your journey so that you continue on the path from zombie mode back to liveliness.